My job is building safe homes. Tonight, my wife and her boyfriend broke into mine, and I turned their little secret into a live show.
The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, sending crystal shards across the room like tiny daggers. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned toward us. And in that moment, standing in the middle of Sophia's precious party, I realized my marriage was as broken as that glass. "I'd rather kiss my dog than dance with you again," Sophia hissed, loud enough for her entire social circle to hear. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Her friends Callie, Jade, and Vanessa exchanged those knowing looks that wealthy women perfect in finishing school. The kind of looks that say, "We always knew he wasn't good enough for her." I'm Eli Quinn, 42 years old, ex-Navy engineer turned custom home builder. I've got calloused hands, a practical truck, and apparently a wife who thinks I'm beneath her now. Standing there in my off-the-rack suit while surrounded by people wearing more money than I make in 6 months, I felt every inch the outsider Sophia wanted me to be. "You know what, Sophia?" I said, my voice cutting through the snickers. "You'll be kissing the doors of my house when I throw you out." The laughter died. Sophia's perfectly made-up face went pale beneath her foundation. Every person in that room knew about prenups. They all had them. And suddenly they were all looking at Sophia like she'd forgotten something very important. "Eli," she whispered, but I was already walking away. I grabbed my jacket from the coat check and headed for the door, but not before I heard Mason Carter's voice behind me. Mason, Sophia's boss, the real estate mogul with the perfect teeth and the Porsche. The man who'd been finding excuses to touch my wife's arm all evening. "Don't worry about him, Sophia," Mason said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Some people just can't handle success." I should have kept walking. Should have gone home, had a beer, and figured out my next move. Instead, I stepped onto the terrace for some air and found myself with a perfect view of the pool area below. That's where I saw them. Sophia and Mason pressed together near the infinity pool, her hands on his chest, his mouth against her ear. They weren't just talking business. The way she leaned into him, the way his hand rested on her lower back. This wasn't their first intimate moment. A wine glass slipped from someone's hand on the terrace above, crashing into the pool with a splash. They jumped apart like guilty teenagers, but the damage was done. I'd seen enough. What's broken tonight can't be glued back together, I thought, watching my wife smooth down her dress and Mason adjust his tie. But as I walked to my truck, something else occurred to me. Something that made me smile for the first time all evening. Sophia had never actually read that prenup she signed. The next morning hit me like a construction site accident. I woke up in my workshop still wearing yesterday's shirt with the taste of bourbon and betrayal in my mouth. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the half-finished cabinets I'd been building for the Henderson project. Sophia was already gone when I dragged myself into the house. Her coffee cup sat in the sink, lipstick stain on the rim like evidence of a crime. A note on the counter, "Gone to the spa with the girls, back late, S." The girls, right. More like gone to plan her next move with Mason. I called my buddy Ryan, the only guy I knew who'd find this situation as ridiculous as I did. "She said what?" Ryan's laugh boomed through the phone. "In front of everyone? The whole crowd, like she was announcing the weather. Man, that's cold, even for Sophia." Ryan had never liked my wife. Thought she was too high maintenance from day one. "So what's your play?" "I'm going to find out exactly what I'm dealing with first." That's when I started noticing things. Really noticing. The new jewelry Sophia claimed was borrowed from Jade. The mysterious late-night phone calls she took in the bathroom. The sudden interest in weekend business conferences that never seemed to involve actual business. I'd built a career on paying attention to details, measuring twice, cutting once. Time to apply those skills to my marriage. My first stop was Dale Morrison, an ex-cop turned private investigator, who owed me a favor from when I'd renovated his office for half price. "You want me to tail your wife?" Dale asked, leaning back in his chair. His office smelled like coffee and cigarettes, with a hint of desperation that came from watching too many cheating spouses. "I want to know what I'm dealing with before I make any moves." Dale nodded. "Smart. Most guys come in here wanting to catch their wives in the act, then fall apart when they actually see it. You're different. Navy taught me to gather intelligence before engaging the enemy." "Is that what she is now? The enemy?" I thought about Sophia's face when she'd humiliated me in front of her friends. The way she'd looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. Yeah, I said, I think she is. Dale's first report came back 3 days later. Photos of Sophia and Mason having lunch at the Riverside Grill. More photos of them at the Marriott downtown going up to the elevators together. Timestamps showed they'd been there for 2 hours. How long has this been going on? I asked Dale. Based on what I've seen, at least 3 months, probably longer. 3 months. That explained the new clothes, the sudden dissatisfaction with our house, the way she'd started talking about upgrading our lifestyle. She wasn't just cheating, she was auditioning for a new life. But I needed more than photos. I needed to understand their plan. That's when I remembered Sophia's assistant, Jenny, a sweet kid fresh out of college who always seemed overwhelmed by Sophia's demands. I found her at the coffee shop near Sophia's office, looking frazzled and overworked. Mr. Quinn? Jenny looked surprised to see me. Is everything okay? Just wanted to grab coffee and see how you're doing. Sophia keeps you pretty busy, huh? Jenny's laugh was bitter. You have no idea. The scheduling alone is a nightmare, especially with all her appointments. Appointments? Oh, the spa days that aren't at spas, the business lunches that last all afternoon, the weekend conferences that don't seem to have any actual conferences. Jenny caught herself, realizing she'd said too much. I mean, it's okay, Jenny. I know about Mason. Relief flooded her face. I'm sorry, Mr. Quinn. I didn't want to keep lying, but she made me promise. What kind of lies? Covering for her when she's with him, making up meetings that don't exist. Last week, she had me book her a room at the Fairmont for a client presentation that was just... Jenny trailed off. Just what? Just her and Mr. Carter. For 3 hours in the middle of the day. I bought Jenny a coffee and a pastry, and by the time we were done talking, I had a timeline of Sophia's affair that went back 6 months. 6 months of lies, cover-ups, and planning. But the real revelation came when I decided to visit Sophia's office after hours. I still had a key from the Christmas party she'd thrown there last year. Security knew me, waved me through without question. Sophia's computer was password protected, but she'd always been terrible with technology. Her password was the same one she used for everything. Baxter teen, named after her ridiculous little dog and the year she got him. What I found in her email made my blood run cold. Messages between Sophia and Mason going back 8 months. Not just love notes, strategy sessions. Plans to transition Eli out of the picture. Discussions about my business, my assets, my limited earning potential compared to Mason's connections. But the worst one was from 3 weeks ago. Mason talked to lawyer friend about domestic issues. Says emotional mistreat claims could help with property division, even with prenup complications. Need to establish pattern of behavior. Working on documentation. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning to destroy me. I printed everything, copied it to a flash drive, and locked up the office like I'd never been there. But as I walked to my truck, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. Mason's Porsche was parked across the street, engine running. He'd been watching the building, watching me. Our eyes met through his windshield. He smiled. Not a friendly smile, but the kind of smile a shark gives before it bites. I drove home carefully, checking my mirrors, thinking about what I'd learned. Sophia wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning to frame me, take everything I'd built, and walk away with Mason Carter like I'd never existed. That night, I sat in my workshop with a beer and started making plans of my own. If Sophia wanted to play games, I'd show her how a Navy engineer approaches problem solving. But first, I needed to understand exactly what I was up against. Mason Carter's mansion sat on 3 acres of manicured lawn like a monument to excess. I'd driven past it a dozen times over the past week, studying the layout, the security cameras, the patterns of the staff. Today, I was finally going to meet the man who thought he could steal my life, but not alone. You sure about this? Ryan asked from the passenger seat of my truck. This guy's got money, connections. He could make trouble for you. He's already making trouble for me. Time to return the favor. I'd called Mason that morning, told him I had a business proposition, something about a luxury development project that needed his expertise. His ego couldn't resist. Eli Quinn? Mason had sounded surprised. I thought you were more of a smaller scale operation. I'm looking to expand. Thought we should talk. We'd arranged to meet at one of my construction sites, a half-finished mansion in the hills that would be perfect for what I had planned. The site was deserted when Mason arrived in his silver Porsche, looking like he owned the world. He stepped out wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck, surveying the construction with the kind of expression rich people get when they're slumming it. Impressive work, he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. Very practical. Thanks. Want to see the interior? I led him through the frame structure, pointing out architectural details, discussing square footage and market potential. Mason played along, but I could see him getting impatient. He was here for a reason, and it wasn't to talk about construction. So what's this really about, Eli? He finally asked when we reached the center of the house. Because I have a feeling this isn't about business. You're right, it's about Sophia. Mason's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. What about her? I know about the affair, Mason, the hotels, the planning sessions, the emails about getting rid of me. Now Mason smiled, and it was exactly as cold as I'd expected. Is that what you think this is? An affair? I think it's a conspiracy. You and my wife plotting to frame me for domestic mistreat so she can break the prenup and take half my assets. Mason laughed. Actually laughed. Eli, you're giving yourself too much credit. Your assets? Your little construction business? That's pocket change. This isn't about money. Then what's it about? It's about Sophia finally being with someone who deserves her. Someone who can give her the life she should have had all along. Mason stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. She told me about how you met her. Homeless, desperate, willing to sign anything for a roof over her head, you took advantage of a vulnerable woman. My hands clenched into fists, but I kept my voice steady. I helped her, gave her everything she needed to build a new life. You trapped her, made her dependent on you, and now she's finally strong enough to break free. That's when Mason made his mistake. He pulled out his phone and showed me a video. Sophia sitting in what looked like a therapist's office, tears streaming down her face as she talked about years of emotional manipulation and feeling afraid in my own home. Professional documentation, Mason said smugly. Amazing what people will believe when there's video evidence. I stared at the screen, watching my wife lie with Oscar-worthy conviction. She'd thought of everything, the setting, the tears, even the way she flinched when she mentioned my name. You're right, I said finally. That is amazing. Mason was so focused on his phone that he didn't notice me step back toward the elevator shaft. The construction elevator wasn't operational yet, but the platform was in place, held by a manual brake system. The thing is, Mason, I continued, I'm pretty good with documentation myself. I pulled out my own phone and hit record. Could you repeat that part about the fake mistreat claims for my lawyer? Mason's face went white. He lunged for my phone, but I was ready for him. I stepped aside, and his momentum carried him straight onto the elevator platform. What the hell? I released the brake. The platform dropped 3 feet before the safety system engaged, leaving Mason trapped in the shaft between floors. What are you doing? Mason screamed, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. Giving you some time to think, I called down. Don't worry, you're perfectly safe. The platform won't drop any further, but you're not getting out until we finish our conversation. I sat down on the edge of the shaft, legs dangling over the side, and looked down at Mason. He was pressed against the back wall of the platform, suit wrinkled, perfect hair messed up for the first time since I'd known him. You want to know what I think, Mason? I think you're the one who's been manipulating Sophia, filling her head with ideas about the life she deserves, making her dissatisfied with what she has. Classic abuser behavior. Isolate the sufferer, make them dependent on you. You're insane. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, you're the one who's trapped. I spent the next hour talking to Mason, really talking about Sophia, about their plan, about the fake mistreat documentation. And Mason, panicked and claustrophobic, told me everything. How he'd targeted Sophia specifically because she was married to someone with assets. How the affair was just the first step in a larger scheme to acquire properties through divorce settlements. How he'd done this before, with other women, other marriages. It's not personal, Eli, Mason said, his voice hoarse from shouting. It's just business. Everything's personal when it's my life you're destroying. By the time I finally activated the manual lift to bring Mason back up, I had everything I needed. Recorded confessions, details about his other sufferers, even the name of the lawyer who'd helped him with previous schemes. Mason stumbled off the platform, his expensive suit torn and dirty, his face pale with rage and humiliation. "You can't prove anything," he said, trying to regain his composure. "No one will believe you." I held up my phone. "Want to bet?" Mason stared at the device, realizing that everything he'd said in the shaft had been recorded. His shoulders sagged in defeat. "What do you want?" "I want you to stay away from my wife. I want you to end whatever sick game you're playing. And I want you to think very carefully about whether you really want to go to war with someone who knows how to build things." Mason straightened his tie, some of his arrogance returning. "This isn't over, Eli." "No," I agreed, watching him walk back to his Porsche. "It's not." But as Mason drove away, I realized I'd made a tactical error. I'd shown him I knew about their plan, which meant they'd change their strategy. Sophia would be ready for me now. Time to move to phase 2. The divorce papers were served at the country club during Sophia's weekly brunch with the girls. I wasn't there to see it, but Jenny called me afterward, barely able to contain her excitement. "Mr. Quinn, you should have seen her face." The server walked right up to their table and said, "Mrs. Sophia Quinn?" And she got this huge smile like she thought it was flowers or something. Then she opened the envelope and just froze. What did her friends do? That's the best part. Callie tried to look over her shoulder to see what it was, and when Sophia said divorce papers, they all got really quiet, like dead quiet. Then Vanessa said something about how she always knew this would happen, and Jade started asking about the prenup. I could picture it perfectly. Sophia's carefully constructed social world cracking apart in real time, her friends already calculating how her downfall might affect their own standings. "There's more," Jenny continued. "After the server left, Sophia tried to call you, but when it went to voicemail, she threw her phone across the restaurant, hit some poor waiter carrying a tray of mimosas." The image made me smile. Sophia had always prided herself on maintaining perfect composure in public. Losing control at the country club would be social self-harm. But I wasn't done yet. My next stop was Gina Carter, Mason's wife. I'd done some research on her, former interior designer, married to Mason for 12 years, 2 kids away at boarding school. From what I could tell, she'd given up her career to be the perfect executive wife. And Mason had repaid her by cheating with every attractive woman who crossed his path. I found her at the Botanical Gardens, sitting alone on a bench near the Rose Garden. She looked tired, older than her 45 years, wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy day. "Mrs. Carter, I'm Eli Quinn." She looked up, and even through the sunglasses, I could see the recognition in her face. Sophia's husband. "For now," Gina gestured to the space beside her on the bench. "I suppose you want to talk about our respective spouses and their friendship." "I want to talk about stopping them." That got her attention. She removed her sunglasses, revealing tired brown eyes with dark circles underneath. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Mason's done this before, multiple times, and he's planning to do it again after he's finished with Sophia." I showed Gina the recordings from the construction site, watched her face change as she heard her husband's voice explaining his systematic approach to destroying marriages for profit. "My God," she whispered. "How many others?" "At least 3 that I know of. Probably more." Gina was quiet for a long moment, staring at the roses like they held answers. "I knew about the affairs," she said finally. "I've known for years, but I thought if I just waited it out, he'd get tired of the games and come home." "He's not going to stop, Gina. This isn't about sex or romance. It's about money and power. He gets off on destroying people." "What do you want from me?" "I want you to help me end this, for both of us." That's how I learned about Mason's other vulnerabilities. The offshore accounts Gina wasn't supposed to know about. The property deals that skirted legal boundaries. The business partners who'd been asking uncomfortable questions about missing funds. "Mason thinks I'm just a pretty decoration," Gina said with a bitter smile. "He has no idea how much I actually know about his business." Over the next week, Gina and I became unlikely allies. She provided inside information about Mason's schedule, his financial dealings, his weaknesses. I provided evidence of his systematic fraud and emotional manipulation. Meanwhile, Sophia was falling apart. The country club incident had been just the beginning. Word spread quickly through her social circle. Sophia Quinn was getting divorced, and there was a prenup involved. Suddenly, the same women who'd laughed at my expense were treating her like a social pariah. Callie was the first to turn. She called me directly, claiming she'd always suspected something was wrong, and offering to testify about Sophia's behavior. She used to laugh about how naive you were, Callie told me over coffee. Said you were so trusting, you'd believe anything she told you. She thought it was hilarious that you never questioned her late nights or weekend trips. Why are you telling me this now? Callie's smile was sharp as glass. Because Sophia made the mistake of thinking she was better than the rest of us. Now she's about to find out what happens when you burn bridges in this town. The social media campaign started organically. Someone, probably Jade, posted a photo from the country club incident, showing Sophia mid-tantrum with the caption, "When keeping it real goes wrong." Within hours, it had dozens of shares and comments from people who'd witnessed Sophia's behavior over the years. Then Ryan's girlfriend, who worked in social media marketing, helped amplify the signal. Soon, Sophia Quinn Meltdown was trending locally, with people sharing stories about Sophia's entitled behavior, her treatment of service workers, her obvious gold digging. But the real blow came when someone leaked the fake therapy video Mason had shown me. I'd given a copy to Gina, who'd shown it to her lawyer as evidence of Mason's manipulation tactics. Somehow, it found its way to a local news blog that specialized in exposing fake mistreat claims. The headline read, "Local socialite caught faking mistreat video for divorce fraud." Within 24 hours, Sophia was toxic. Her real estate license was under review. Her country club membership was temporarily suspended pending investigation. Even her hairdresser stopped returning her calls. Mason tried to distance himself, claiming he'd been deceived by Sophia's lies and had no knowledge of any fraudulent activity. But Gina was already 3 steps ahead of him. She'd filed for divorce, frozen their joint accounts, and provided evidence of Mason's offshore holdings to the IRS. She'd also given copies of his recorded confessions to the State Bar Association and the Real Estate Licensing Board. 20 years of marriage, Gina told me when we met for coffee to compare notes. 20 years of looking the other way while he destroyed other people's lives. I should have done this a long time ago. What changed your mind? You did. When you showed me those recordings, I realized I wasn't protecting my marriage. I was enabling an aggressor. But Sophia and Mason weren't going down without a fight. That's when they made their biggest mistake. The brick came through my workshop window at 3 in the morning, shattering glass across my workbench and nearly taking out the cabinet I'd been finishing for the Henderson project. Wrapped around it was a note. Drop the divorce or things get worse. I called the police, filed a report, and installed security cameras around my property. But I also called Dale. They're getting desperate, Dale said, examining the brick. Desperate people make stupid mistakes. What kind of mistakes? The kind that end up on camera. Dale was right. The security system I'd installed caught Mason's car driving slowly past my house twice the next night. It also caught Sophia trying to break into my workshop the following weekend, looking for something she could use against me. But the real stupidity came when they tried to turn my own crew against me. I'd been working with the same group of guys for 5 years, honest, hardworking men who'd helped me build my business from nothing. Sophia and Mason apparently thought they could buy their loyalty. "Boss, you need to hear this," said Tommy, my foreman, when I arrived at the Henderson site Monday morning. "That fancy guy in the Porsche showed up yesterday asking questions about you." "What kind of questions?" "Whether you ever got violent on the job, whether we'd seen you drinking during work hours, whether we thought you might be the type to hit a woman." Tommy's face was grim. When we told him to go to hell, he started offering money, $5,000 each if we'd sign statements about your erratic behavior. "What did you guys tell him?" Tommy grinned. "We told him we'd think about it. Then we called you." That's when I knew I had them. The plan was simple. My crew would agree to meet with Mason, pretend to consider his offer, and record everything. Meanwhile, Gina would arrange for Sophia to accidentally encounter me at a public place where we'd have witnesses to any confrontation. The trap was set for the following Saturday at the farmers market downtown. Gina had told Sophia that Mason would be there handling some business, which was technically true. He'd be meeting with my crew in the parking lot behind the market. I was buying coffee when Sophia found me. "Eli." Her voice was cold, but I could hear the desperation underneath. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was flat. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and she'd lost weight in all the wrong places. Sophia, you look. I paused, pretending to search for the right word. Tired. We need to talk. I don't think we do. My lawyer handles all communication now. This is ridiculous, Eli. We can work this out. I made some mistakes, but we don't need to destroy each other. I pulled out my phone and started recording. What kind of mistakes? Sophia glanced around nervously, realizing we were attracting attention. The farmer's market crowd was pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. You know what I mean. The thing with Mason, well, it wasn't serious. It was just, I was confused, feeling neglected. Neglected? I gave you everything you wanted. You gave me a house in the suburbs and a husband who comes home covered in sawdust. Her voice was rising, drawing more stares. I wanted more than that. I deserved more. You deserved more than a man who loved you and built you a life. I deserved a man who could give me the life I was meant to have. And there it was, the real Sophia, finally dropping the sufferer act and showing her true colors in front of half the town. What life was that, Sophia? The one where you frame your husband for mistreat so you can steal his assets? Sophia's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. I held up my phone, showing her the recording app. Want to try that again? That's when Sophia completely lost it. She lunged for my phone, screaming about invasion of privacy and emotional mistreat. I stepped back, letting her grab at empty air while everyone in the market watched her meltdown. You're destroying my life, she shrieked, tears streaming down her face. I have nothing left, no friends, no money, no future. You had everything, I said calmly. You threw it away for a fantasy. Sophia collapsed onto a nearby bench, sobbing hysterically while strangers watched in embarrassment. Someone called 911, thinking she was having a medical emergency. But the real show was happening in the parking lot. Mason had arrived to meet with my crew, expecting to finalize their bribery deal. Instead, he found himself surrounded by 6 large, angry construction workers with recording devices. So let me get this straight, Tommy said, his voice carrying clearly across the parking lot. You want us to lie about our boss being violent and unstable? I want you to tell the truth about what you've observed, Mason replied, apparently not realizing how loud his voice was carrying. And you're offering us $5,000 each for this truth? I'm offering compensation for your time and the risk you're taking. The risk of committing perjury? That's when Mason realized he'd been set up. He looked around at the circle of workers, saw the phones recording his every word, and understood that his carefully planned scheme had just collapsed. This is entrapment, he said weakly. No, said Tommy. This is justice. The police arrived to find Sophia having a breakdown on a bench, while Mason tried to explain to a group of construction workers why offering bribes for false testimony wasn't actually illegal. Both incidents were recorded by multiple witnesses and uploaded to social media before the police had finished taking statements. By Sunday morning, Sophia Quinn meltdown had evolved into Sophia and Mason exposed, with videos of both incidents going viral throughout the city. The local news picked up the story Monday morning. Real estate mogul and socialite caught in divorce fraud scheme. Mason's business partners began distancing themselves immediately. 3 major deals fell through when clients saw the footage of him attempting to bribe witnesses. The State Real Estate Commission announced an investigation into his licensing. Sophia fared even worse. The video of her meltdown at the farmer's market was viewed over 50,000 times in the first week, with comments ranging from mockery to genuine concern for her mental health. But I wasn't satisfied yet. There was one more piece of business to handle. The storm hit on a Tuesday night in October, bringing the kind of rain that turns streets into rivers and makes smart people stay indoors. I was in my workshop, putting finishing touches on a custom dining table, when the motion sensors around my property started lighting up. 3 figures were moving through my backyard, trying to stay hidden behind the oak trees I'd planted when Sophia and I first bought the house. Even through the rain, I could make out Sophia's silhouette, along with Mason and someone else, probably one of Mason's business associates. I'd been expecting this. For the past month, since their public humiliation at the farmer's market, Sophia and Mason had been growing increasingly desperate. The divorce was proceeding smoothly in my favor, with the prenup holding up perfectly in court. Mason's business was collapsing under the weight of multiple investigations. They had nothing left to lose, which made them dangerous. I'd prepared for this moment. The house had been wired with a comprehensive security system, not just cameras, but motion sensors, automatic lighting, and a direct feed to both the police and a private security company. More importantly, I'd set up a live stream system that would broadcast everything to social media in real time. If Sophia and Mason wanted a final confrontation, they'd get one. But it would be on my terms, with the whole world watching. I activated the system from my phone and settled in to wait. They tried the back door first, then the windows, finally resorting to breaking the glass panel next to the kitchen entrance. The sound of shattering glass triggered the first wave of floodlights, illuminating the entire backyard like a football stadium. Mess! Mason's voice carried clearly through the rain. I thought you said the security system was basic. It was when I lived here, Sophia replied, her voice tight with stress. He must have upgraded it. They were inside now, dripping wet and arguing in whispers. The interior cameras caught everything, Sophia leading Mason and his associate, a large man in an expensive suit who looked like private security, through the house I'd built for her. Where would he keep the files? Mason asked. Probably the office upstairs. He always kept important papers there. They were looking for evidence. The recordings, the financial documents, anything they could use to discredit me or destroy my case against them. What they didn't know was that everything important was stored off-site in a safety deposit box. I watched them search through my desk, my filing cabinets, my computer. The live stream was already picking up viewers. Friends, neighbors, random strangers drawn by the drama of watching a break-in happen in real time. There's nothing here, the security guy said after 20 minutes of fruitless searching. Just normal household stuff. Keep looking, Mason snapped. He's got to have backup somewhere. That's when I decided to make my entrance. I walked through the front door like I was coming home from a normal evening out. Keys jingling, whistling a tune. The sound echoed through the house, and I heard their voices stop abruptly. Honey, I'm home, I called out cheerfully. Silence. I made my way to the kitchen, turning on lights as I went, acting like I had no idea anyone else was in the house. The cameras caught Sophia and Mason frozen in my office upstairs, panic written across their faces. Sophia, you up there? I saw your car in the driveway. More silence. Then the sound of frantic whispering. I climbed the stairs slowly, still maintaining the pretense of normalcy. I know you're here, Sophia. The security system sent me an alert when you broke the window. I found them in my office. Mason and his associate standing protectively in front of Sophia like they were ready for a fight. Evening, folks, I said pleasantly. Little late for a social call, isn't it? Eli, Sophia started, but I held up a hand to stop her. Before you say anything, you should know that everything happening right now is being broadcast live to about 3,000 people on social media. So whatever you're planning to say, make sure it's something you want the whole world to hear. Mason's face went pale. You're bluffing. I held up my phone, showing him the live stream interface. Current viewer count, 3,247 and climbing. Comments are pretty entertaining too. Lots of people remember your performance at the farmer's market. The security guy looked uncomfortable. Mr. Carter, maybe we should... We should what? Mason snapped. Leave empty-handed while this amateur ruins everything? This amateur, I said calmly, has been recording every word you've said since you broke into my house. Breaking and entering, conspiracy, attempted theft. That's going to look great in court. Sophia stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. Eli, please. I know I made mistakes, but I never meant for it to go this far. Mason said we just needed to find some evidence to prove you were hiding assets. I'm not hiding anything, Sophia. Everything I own is listed in the divorce filing. You're the one who tried to hide things. That's not true. Really? What about the joint account you opened with Mason? The one with $50,000 from our home equity line? Sophia's face crumpled. She hadn't known I'd found that account. Mason stepped between us, his composure finally cracking. You think you're so smart, don't you? The working-class hero who outmaneuvered the rich guy. But you have no idea what you're dealing with. Enlighten me. You destroyed my business, my reputation, my marriage. You think I'm just going to walk away and let you win? The threat was clear, and the security guy was moving closer, but I wasn't worried. The live stream was up to over 4,000 viewers now, and I could hear sirens in the distance. You destroyed your own business when you decided to make a career out of destroying marriages, I said. You destroyed your own reputation when you got caught bribing witnesses. And you destroyed your own marriage when you decided your wife was just another obstacle to overcome. Mason lunged at me then, all pretense of civilized behavior abandoned. But he was a desk jockey who'd spent too many years in boardrooms and not enough in gyms. I'd spent 20 years in the Navy and another 20 swinging hammers and hauling lumber. The fight lasted about 10 seconds. Mason ended up on the floor, his expensive suit torn and his perfect hair messed up, while his security guy stood frozen, realizing that attacking someone on livestream in front of 5,000 witnesses probably wasn't worth whatever Mason was paying him. "The police are here," I announced, hearing car doors slam outside on perfect timing. What followed was the most satisfying hour of my life. Sophia, Mason, and the security guy were arrested for breaking and entering, with thousands of witnesses who'd watched the entire incident unfold online. The live stream had been shared across multiple platforms, turning their final desperate gambit into a viral sensation. The comments were brutal. "Is this the same woman who had the meltdown at the farmer's market? Why does the rich guy fight like a toddler? Team Eli. This man is a legend." But the best part came when the police searched Mason's car and found detailed plans for the break-in, including a list of items they'd hoped to steal and falsify. It was evidence of premeditation that would turn a simple burglary into a serious felony. As they were being led away in handcuffs, Sophia looked back at me one last time. "I loved you once," she said, her voice barely audible over the rain. "No," I replied, feeling oddly sad for her. "You loved the idea of me, the security I represented, but you never loved the actual person." The police cars disappeared into the storm, taking with them the woman I'd married and the man who'd tried to destroy my life. I stood in my doorway, watching the rain wash the last traces of their presence from my property, and realized something important. I was free. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. The prenup held up perfectly, leaving Sophia with nothing but the clothes she'd bought during our marriage and a legal bill that would take her years to pay off. Mason was sentenced to 18 months in prison for conspiracy and attempted theft. His real estate empire collapsed completely, with properties being sold off to pay creditors and legal fees. Gina Carter got half of what was left, which was still enough to start over somewhere new. She sent me a postcard from Colorado, where she'd opened a small interior design firm. Sophia moved back in with her mother in Ohio. I heard through Jenny that she'd gotten a job at a local department store and was dating a middle manager who drove a Honda Civic. As for me, I kept building houses, kept living my life, kept being exactly who I'd always been. The only difference was that now I knew exactly what that was worth, and it was more than enough. The end.